Haro. That's Korean for hello. Hi. This is Single Again for the First Time, podcast number 7. I am Vincent Truman. This is Chicago, Illinois. And a belated Happy Easter to all those who are big fans of the Council of Nicaea, who, in 325 AD, put Easter on the books. So if you like them, then Happy Easter to you. Going to start out with some sad news, which isn't really sad news. The individual I went on 2 dates with, date 1.0 and 1.1, had to put the kibosh on that. Admittedly, there were 3 things that I was concerned about going into a dating scenario with her, and they were as follows. 1, she was right-leaning, I'm left-leaning. I kind of thought I could get around that. I didn't see that as a big barrier. 2, she's Christian, I'm atheist. That was a little more difficult, but I figured, if she had a respect for herself and me, then I could have respect for her and me as well, which I already do. So that I thought I could get around that. But 3, she's an IT professional. And I was like, oh, God. My ex-wife was an IT professional. And I thought, geez, do I want another socially awkward nerd who always thinks they're right? I don't know. Date 1.1 was pretty good. It did go on for 7 hours, and there was a lot of laughing and a lot of good times. And she offered to give me a ride home, which was very nice of her. And we got into her big gas-guzzling machine, and we're driving down the street, and I'm giving her directions to my house, and I'm just saying, yeah, just go straight. And her GPS comes on and says, take a right. So she takes a right, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just go straight. And she's like, well, I don't believe you. And I will be goddamned if I will voluntarily go into one more relationship where I'm automatically assumed to be a liar. I believe it was Morgan Freeman who said, fuck that. Yeah, that's not attractive to me. I don't know who that would be attractive to unless somebody's so desperate for poontang that they would put up with anything. That could have killed the whole thing, but we still drove on, and she dropped me off at the house, and they gave her a hug, and I'm reaching for the door, and then I lean over and say, well, I'm just going to give you a kiss, and she turns her head away, and I'm like, eh. So I write her the next day. I said, did I misread something? I mean, there was a lot of shoulder rubbing, there was a lot of laughter, there was hand holding. And laughing all the way down Michigan Avenue. Did I misread all that? And she wrote back and said, no, I just want to move slow. And I didn't like that. Now, she did not have to kiss me back. She was not obligated to kiss me back, okay? I'm just putting that on the table there. But when she reached out to hold my hand for the first time, I had 2 choices. Take the risk, accept that offering, and hold her hand back, which I did, or jerk my hand away and go, I want to move slow. I chose the way that made her feel better. And it was a small risk, holding hands. A single kiss goodnight was also a small risk, following 7 hours. But I still didn't know what to do about it, so I talked to a lot of my guy friends about it, talked to some of my girlfriends about it. Very interesting. The guys were uniform in their opinion. Well, it's only been 2 dates. She may have been burned in the past by moving too quickly. It's only 2 dates. Okay, all right, fair enough. Talked to my girlfriends. They were also uniform in their opinion, and that opinion was, run. Just run. If it's date 2 and she's bringing out the baggage and she's putting it on your shoulders and it's changing how you behave, run. So I decided to run. I sent her an email a few days later saying, I'm not feeling the romance thing, but I know you want to get out of your routine, so why don't you come out, hang out with some of my friends, experience something new, break out, find some fun stuff. Did not get a reply. Sent her a text follow-up, did not get a reply. I mean, that's how much respect was afforded me, so I think I made a pretty good call on that. Anyway, I'm still tearing through Mating in Captivity, the excellent book by Esther Perel, which I would heartily recommend for anybody in a relationship or out of a relationship. It's really, really good. She has a phrase in there which really stuck with me. I had to go back and just read it. And it's just a sentence. And it says, Show me how you were loved as a child, and I'll show you how you love as an adult, basically. And that that was like a nail in the head, kind of in honor of Easter. When I reflect on my former spouse's life, she was dealt a really shitty hand. Whenever I'm pissed off about how she handled things, I try and keep that in check, because she was just dealt a poor hand. One of the biggest things, I'm not going to talk about them all, obviously, but one of the biggest things was her dad just took off, just kind of one day. Didn't want to be part of the family. Didn't want the wife and the two girls. Just kind of took off and started a whole new family again. What a shitty thing to do. And then he just kind of vanished and stuff like that. The former spouse used to say that she felt that he left twice. Once when he left the family, and another one years later when he just died after years of not being in contact. So she was carrying that around. My mistake, not mistake, I'd still do it again, was that I thought I could work around that by showing her somebody who was not going to leave. I did not know she was going to follow so ably in her father's footsteps and take off. I didn't know that. As for me, in my own family, just kind of reflecting my nuclear family of mom, dad, and sis, all three of them at one time or another really zapped me something hard and unnecessarily. So my mother and I are on really good terms now, so we've dealt with it. But at 15, she kind of shipped me off to live with my dad, really for no reason, but she wanted to go do something else with this guy. There's some abandonment issues there. And my father, who was, awesome, and looked at me proudly one day and said, you were a goddamn mistake. Thanks, Dad. And then my sister, years later, who tried to hose me out of my share of our father's estate. All unnecessary acts. But that stuff most certainly followed me into my marriage, and what I tried to do to compensate, because I was aware those weren't healthy things to do to people. I was aware of that. What I tried to do was, as I mentioned in my last podcast, really emphasize the security, the safety, and the permanence of the relationship. Funny thing about permanence, it doesn't really exist, Nothing's really permanent. And nobody likes to think that, because you get together with somebody, you make vows, and that's it. That's a permanent, I found the one, I'm settling down. But it's always in flux. There's always a change. You add in kids to it, and there's always change. It's always impermanence. For the first few months, it's and then suddenly they're walking, and then suddenly they're talking, suddenly they're thinking on their own, suddenly they're having premarital sex, and you're staying up till 4 a.m, and you ground them. There's always movement going on. Embracing that, the impermanence, the constant evolution, the constant change, is something I'm trying to keep in mind, and would suggest for anybody listening into this crazy podcast thing. And I'm doing all this. I had a friend ask me, why are you doing all this podcasty thing? It's really because my default mode is still sad. I can usually cover it up with a nice layer of comedy, which is a good kind of healthy escape. Sometimes it's anger, which anger terrifies me, because anger, in my opinion, is just sadness wearing a leather jacket, and eventually the jacket comes off and it's just sad. But my default is still sad after, what's it been, 14, 15 months, maybe 16, maybe a year and a half. And I'm trying to get beyond it as best I can. And sometimes it's really hard. But that's why I'm doing all this. Kind of a downer note to end the podcast on. Hope you forgive me. Thanks for listening in. And this impermanent podcast ends right about now.